So you're reading a special holiday story for us.
Yes, it's Regency romance, and it's a 12th night tale. So anybody who wants to curl up by the fire with some mulled cider, read some spicy, very romantic fiction, I've got it for you. It's a novella too. It's a short read.
Fantastic. Spicy romance with your spiced cider. What could be better? Take it away whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you. Chelsea Milliner. Monday, 6th January, 1812. Amelia de Maupassant balanced the hat on the fingertips of one hand, carefully, like a bird that might startle into flight. The taupe was the sole survivor of her catastrophe. It did resemble a bird, a feathery crest of poppy red and jonquil yellow, trembling as her hand trembled, as her whole body trembled with shock, with grief. I will not cry. She would tell herself, not now, but in a week or two, that the fire was just another beginning, one of the many that followed the ending, of which her life also had far too many. After the long night of the fire, the day had dawned cruelly bright, the better for her to view the reeking remains of what had been, just the day before, a jewel of a milliner's shop. The timing of the fire had a depressing irony to it. January 5th, Epiphany Eve, the time when every household in Chelsea brought its Christmas trimmings to the green between Coleshill and Westbourne Streets at midnight, tossing the drying boughs of holly and vines of ivy into a merry bonfire. Such jollity! Epiphany, the day of fresh start, on which an errant spark from the bonfire licked the roof of her shop, and then, liking the taste, swallowed it whole. Amelia took a few aimless, shuffling steps through a drift of carbonized hat boxes and peach shriveled ribbons. Before the drift became a drift, it was a year's worth of stock, lovingly crafted for her opening day, this day. For a painful moment, the shop filled with the ghosts of her creation. A wine velvet bonnet with swan's down corona, another in marine blue with swirl trim, a satin and gold braid capote that her mother would have called in calutet, a little clam. An Agrippina bonnet of fine straw, its turned up brim edged and pleated silk ribbon. All gone, all and more gone. The pretty shop had become a mausoleum of dreams, interred with the rest of her dead. Her family's happy life in Paris replaced by the terror. Papa, the pillar of the family, lost in a carriage wreck. Maman, taken a year later, a frail heart weakened by grief. Jasper, Amelia's bridegroom, killed at sea. She could reopen the shop, she supposed, in January, a year hence, except there was no stock, no workroom, no materials, no money. All she had in abundance was debt. That would follow her into the next year and beyond. The smallest of blessings comforted her. No one was tormenting her by asking about fire insurance. Why would they? There was no fire plaque on the shop's outside wall, no insurance that such plaques denoted. There were plaques on the buildings to either side, numbers 10 and 12 Westbourne Street. Their owner was titled and wealthy. He could afford the Hart Fire Insurance Office's monthly premium. The buildings were newer, worth insuring. Best of all for their owner, they didn't share a wall with the hat shop. Poor old number 11. No more than an ancient wayhouse, a relic of Chelsea's bucolic past and of Elizabeth Tudor's reign, thatched, half-timbered, charming, flammable. The clip-clopping of a horse distracted her, barely. A horseman beyond her open front door, up the street maybe, or on the path across the green. Other noises filtered past her numbness, shouts and laughter, a rook cawing somewhere. Chelsea was waiting. Tradesmen yawned their way to work. A smell of baking bread battled with the stink of burned wood. Housewives sluiced their front steps with buckets of water. Amelia looked around, wondering if a bucket had survived the fire. If she had a bucket, she could mop the filthy floor. She had a mop. There had been plenty of water yesterday, all in the wrong places. The Hart's Fire Brigade eventually arrived, not for hers, but for the insured building. By then, the householders and shopkeepers around the green had formed a bucket brigade and were vigorously dousing the insured structure, half-heartedly splashing number 11. We'll just contain the blaze. That came from Mr. Hand, the owner of the Chelsea Bun House, opposite the old Ranelagh Garden. He didn't look Amelia in the eye when he said it. His stout wife brought Amelia a cup of hot milk and a bun when the worst was over. Hard luck for you, lamb, but the place was very old, and, well, the old ones go up like hayricks. Mrs. Hand patted Amelia on the shoulder and joined her husband. The two returned to their business. It was by then past dawn, and there was baking to be done. The bun house cat had followed its owner to the fire, but not gone back with them. It sat on the wet cobble, watching the denouement of the ruckus with green, disinterested eyes. Amelia picked a currant out of the bun and put it in her mouth, tasting nothing but wood smoke. She gave the bun to the cat. He sniffed at it and walked away, tail high with scorn. Now Amelia stood in the wreck of her shop and struggled to think. She needed to project some order on the day, on the next series of days. She couldn't simply stay rooted in the cinders of her life, but making hats was all she'd done since she could wield a needle. Imagining herself doing something else, she tried and failed. The last unburned hat, the one in her hand, was saved by being tucked under the thick shop counter. If only she put more of her stock somewhere safe. But he didn't, because he put into condition hellfire raining down on the shop. True, though after the serial catastrophes of her life, she should have expected it. A slight sound made her turn toward the door. Someone, a man, stood in the opening, lit from behind by morning light. Squinting into the glare, Amelia could make out nothing of the man's features or his dress, only dark plains and sun-haloed outlines. Her internal habit of style hadn't yet admitted its depth, and so she noted the fashionably lean lines of the man's body, the broad shoulders that filled the doorway. His height was such that it forced him to remove his hat in order to pass under the lintel. Without volition, her impressions went into the notebook of her mind, as though he might order a hat from her. Of course, sir, something in ash gray or charcoal. I have plenty of that. She tried to address the man, failed, coughed twice, and finally succeeded with a sound like paper ripping. The Chapeau d'Amélie is not open for business, sir, as you can see. Ah, but I don't see. The words mocked, but lightly, carried on a voice as smooth as velvet, as warm as fur. The shop is named Amelia de. He pointed to the toque still in her quaking hand, and there it is. I will not harm. The command came from her brain, but didn't quite reach her eye. Amelia was helpless to stop the hot tears that gathered and burned. The man crossed the room in 4 long strides. After resting his own hat on the scorched top of the counter, he pulled a handkerchief from the pocket of his greatcoat and held it to her. Her smarting eyes turned to it, then back to her hand. The feathered toque shimmied on her fingers, the wanton chickadee. I will not harm. Ever so gently, the man took the toque from her, filling her hand instead with his handkerchief. She brought it to her face. Fine linen, smelling of vetiver and orange. Then she cried.